Welcome to the Even Better podcast, where your host, Sinikka Waugh of Your Clear Next Step, brings you exciting content about making communities better by helping people get even better at work.
Hi, it's Haley from Your Clear Next Step. Did you know our mission is to help people have better workdays so that together they can co-create better communities? We do this by helping people make authentic human connections, deliver real business value, and treat change as a process, not an event. We have several upcoming classes that you won't want to miss. Sign up today at yourclearnextstep.com/events.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me. This is Sinikka Waugh, and this is the Even Better podcast. And I'm so delighted that you chose to join us today. This is part of our ongoing mission here at Your Clear Next Step to help us all have better workdays so that together we can co-create even better communities. I am delighted to welcome here today my guest, Catherine Schut. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you for being here. So, Catherine, for those of you who don't know Catherine, she is the founder and the owner of Hive and Petal. It is a boutique beekeeping flower farm, and they're focused on growing seasonal, unique flowers here in central Iowa. And I need to tell you about how I met Catherine. So, Catherine and I met at a women's networking event that was this was an event that had been meeting quarterly, a women's networking group that had been meeting quarterly here in the central Iowa area. And alas, Catherine and I met on the final moment that this group was meeting. But fortunately for us, we both recognized that we could continue to meet. And that was, in fact, the very point of the networking group, was to form intentional connections so that women would continue to meet and continue to connect. And I recognized right away that Catherine was one of these people who puts joy into the world, who puts beauty into the world, who puts lightness out into the world. And I was immediately attracted to all of that and wanted to learn more about her business and the cool things that she's doing right here in central Iowa. And wanted to hear more that particular evening. So, Catherine, I'm not going to give away too much of your story, but that particular evening, one of the things that immediately made me say, hey, I want to learn more about you and what you were doing, was in the front of, I don't know, 100 women that night. You were talking about and celebrating something in your business that had just happened. It was novel, it was cool, it was exciting, it was triumphant. And you were sharing that in a way that inspired the women around you. And I found that to be really, really exciting. So that's part of why we're here. And I would love to just let your story speak and inspire the people around you. So tell us a little bit about you, Catherine.
Sure. Should I start with how I got into flower farming?
That seems like a great thing to do. Let's start there.
Sure.
Have you always been into flower farming?
No, this is last year was my third season growing flowers. Prior to that, I had been working with a large scale production facility in their lab department, and I'd spent almost a decade there and realized at one point that I was going to need to make a career shift. It was a very difficult decision to make because I took a big leap of faith and I left that job without anything else lined up. And it was a very scary thing to do because I, up to that point in my life, had had very organized and controlled steps of where I thought I was going to be and then where I eventually ended up. And after leaving that position, I ended up in my house in Beaverdale, which is this cute little historic community in Des Moines. And I was going stir crazy. And eventually, my husband went crazy dealing with all of my crazy ideas because there were a number of them. And he said, Kath, you need a project. And eventually, through that, we realized that a house project, like finding a renovation, would be a really great opportunity for me to develop some of the skills, use some of the skills that I had to turn something that was a little aged into something a bit more modern, not too modern, but a bit more modern. And we ended up purchasing a farm back in 2016 from a family that had owned it for 4 generations. And it was, for us, the perfect project. And it really needed a lot of work, but it had good bones, as they say. So I spent about um, 5 to 6 years working on the house. Some of it I did with hired help. Some of it was work that I did on my own. Like for example, electrical work, I always hire that out. Plumbing, I always hire that out. My hair is curly enough. I don't need it any curlier, so electrical's out. But things that were within my skill set were things that I worked on. So bathroom renovations and things like that. And eventually we got to a point in the house where we felt like we had kind of tamed the beast, so to speak, because there were a lot of things that needed done to meet our aesthetic expectations. There weren't, like I said, there wasn't anything so dire like basement walls caving in or anything, but we did quite a bit. And we got to a point where we were ready to shift some of our focus outside. And what we had learned shortly after we had purchased the property was that a lot of the property itself was concrete. And we didn't realize that at the time when we bought the farm, we had bought it as is. And so certain disclosures weren't entirely necessary, like they weren't legally obligated. And we didn't have any hurt feelings about it. We knew some of the farm's history, so we knew that there were going to be some historical things that we were going to have to deal with. But we the concrete happened to be the biggest scale problem that we ran into once we were ready to start approaching things outdoors. And it was almost 1/3 of the farm. So 1 acre of our 3 acres was concrete. And it took us, setting an annual budget and year over year, like a little bit by a little bit, hiring out contractors to say, okay, we've got a couple $1,000. Let's take out however much we can for that couple $1,000 and then repeat that over a number of years until we got to the point where we could start to pursue other outdoor projects. And first came the bees. So once we got the biggest chunk of concrete removed, then I could start developing prairie space. And then once the bees were on the site, established and doing well, we had started looking at, okay, do I want to go back to a traditional job or do we want to try to figure out something else here? And I really had to do a lot of soul searching, but I kept coming back. I've been gardening for like most of my life. I loved it. And I kept coming back to this idea that I love growing beautiful things. And
Mm.
I think that growing flowers would be a really fulfilling way to use this beautiful property that we had been working so hard on and like a really great next chapter for it. So that was really where the story started. And it was, I would say maybe like that 2020, 2021 time frame that we really started contemplating the logistics and where would things go and what things did I like to grow and what was our pest pressure. And from there, it developed and it expanded. And like I said, now officially we have, as a farm business, last year was my third season. And it was, I think, like most people, like gardening and any kind of venture where weather is a factor, and outside environment is a factor, there's a lot of learning and growing. And even though I've been doing this for 3 years, I still very much so, in many ways, feel like a beginner,
Mhm.
um, and still learning. But a challenge to that and why it's taking time is because we've had to build infrastructure, and a lot of that infrastructure had to be done from scratch. So it's taken time to get to the point where we are today, but I still feel like, cycles of improvement. And I guess that's a long-winded way to say it all started with started with quitting my job and finding myself looking for an opportunity to use this farmland in a way that really added emotional value and financial value for us here.
So I want to pause with that for just a second because I think as we get into other things, I want to, I just want to sit with the fact that you did not grow up knowing for sure that you were going to be a beekeeper and a flower farmer. Is that true?
It's true.
Okay.
I've
And
I've loved gardening. I mean, I when I lived in Beaverdale, I had a really great series of neighbors that I would grow certain vegetables and they would grow different vegetables, and we would do a
Mm,
veggie swap through
okay.
the season. And when we moved, um, my neighbors asked if they could take the garden beds like with the soil in them, and I was like, oh, I'm pretty sure the person buying our property wants to keep those. Which, I mean, we had a really good thing going on in Des Moines. But yeah, like you said, knowing that I have always enjoyed nature and enjoyed that time outdoors and growing things, very much so a part of my personality. But using it as a business venture is a completely different mindset. And getting into it, I did not understand how vastly different the mindset would be.
For sure. Okay. And the job that you were doing before was not a job that was using skills in beekeeping and flower farming. That's
Uh, not not directly. Probably the closest it would get was critical thinking and problem solving because that was a lot of my job
okay.
and holding people accountable. Those were like my three big things that I had to deal with in my job
Okay.
prior to that.
But you're not playing in the soil in your day job before. You were not chasing bees around in your day job before. This wildly like different.
If bees showed up on our production facility, there was a very different handling method. It was calling in the pros to come and take them away,
Okay.
keep them safe.
Okay. And there was a moment, so I'm just calling in here. There was a moment in which you did not have that day job anymore. And this was an intentional move on your part, but it could have also like there are other reasons that people don't have their day jobs anymore, whether they're geographic moves because their spouse has there's a reason that our spouse's opportunities come to somewhere else, or there's a transition in the family, or there are layoffs that are happening in the world right now. And there's a moment in which we don't have that day job that we had before. In your case, this was a choice. This day job is not fulfilling me anymore. Is that what was going on?
Uh, the hours had gotten
Yeah.
too crazy. That
Okay.
was where it really came down. They'd done some restructuring,
Yeah.
and I was working almost 90 hours a week
Ugh.
on call, and it really got to a point where it was unsustainable for me. I don't give up easily, and the conversation with my upper management, I brought it to them because, again, change management, you expect that there's
Mhm.
going to be some disruption in your life
Sure.
and you'll expect a period of time before you get settled back into the new normal.
Yeah.
And I had gone 30 days and it hadn't slowed down. And then I went 60 days and it was still the same chaos. And then I went 90 days
Mm.
and it was still the same level of chaos. And I approached my management bits and pieces throughout that, saying, hey, we've got to reprioritize, we've got to shift expectations, we've got all of these things going on, and it's just too much for any one person. And their response was not encouraging.
Mm.
And eventually, that was where the decision point had to be made that I had to prioritize something else over this. So I started applying for jobs and I applied for 6 months, continuing to deal with all of this. And
Oof.
it was 6 months of trying to talk myself through how I was going to stay or how I was going to go. And at the end of, now beyond this 90-day period, we're 6 months beyond that point, 9 months in, and it's still the same level of chaos. And I, I had to let it go.
Yeah.
And it was a really hard lesson for me because I put so much of myself in my work.
Yeah.
And someone said this to me, and it helped me understand my role in this chaos. And it was because I felt like a failure. I felt like I was failing, and I felt like a failure. And a person said to me, not being set up for success is not the same thing as failing.
Right.
And that was it completely shifted my mindset about my work, my role in my work, and
Mhm.
how the decline of my time there kind of came together.
Yeah.
So I've been able to use that specific phrase with other people. I've had some wonderful teachers that I've spoken to that have had some frustrations in their education work and say that same exact phrase to them with some of the frustrations that they were dealing with, that it's like I understand your frustration, and not being set up for success doesn't mean you're a failure. And that was really, it was helpful to me at that time. And I think that was helpful to those people that I was able to share that with, for people who care so deeply about their work. And that, again, I'm a perfectionist at
Right.
heart. I am never one to go for the easiest solution. I want the best, always. I always want the best solution, which means I will solve every problem at least 1,000 times before I take an action. But once my mind is made up, I'm going to solve that problem and I'm going to get it done, and it's going to be good
It's going to
after
be
I'm
good.
done with it. And it was such a heartbreak for me in that previous job to not to be solving the problems 1,000 times and still not be any better off than I was before I started. It was very frustrating. So
For sure.
I had quite a bit of emotional, feelings that I had to work through after that. And that helped me prioritize when I was thinking about future roles,
Hmm.
prioritizing my peace and, recognizing, because I've worked other jobs, little bits here and there, and it helped me reorient if I was having a difficult conversation with an upper management or, something like that. Um, where the ownership part was mine, and then being able to converse with a person and say that you're not meeting my expectations to set me up for success, and you need to keep that in mind with the results you're receiving. So it was a hard thing for me to learn, but I think it helped me prioritize some things, and it's helped me to have better conversations and set those expectations realistically, because I'm a big believer that good boundaries preserve relationships.
Oh, absolutely. That beautifully stated. Good boundaries preserve relationships. They do.
Mm.
And I think thank you for being so candid with that, and thank you for sharing your story, because I think it helps position, and I think it shares part of why you're so effective in the conversations that you and I have had. I think it's part of why you emerged so beautifully as a vendor, as a provider of the services and the products that you provide. You know very well who you are. Your identity is super clear, and that's really, really lovely. As in the products and services that you offer, it's crystal clear. So let's
Mm.
start talking about your who your like your farm and what you provide. Let's do just a little bit there. What are some of the personal beliefs then? Because I think that spills over as you talk about boundaries and your identity. What are some of the personal beliefs that inform who you are?
Sure. So, I feel like I have 1,000 answers to that
Right?
question. But one of the talking points that I use on my website is a goal of my flower farm is to create an environment where all can thrive.
Mhm.
And for me, that includes all the way down to the tiniest little bugs, all the way up to the people enjoying the flowers, and using sustainable, environmentally friendly practices that help people. So it's not just helping people emotionally, but it's not going to be harmful to them. Sidebar, I just read a news article recently talking about some of the challenges with imported flowers and the use of pesticides and herbicides and things. And you're looking at these beautiful flowers and realizing when you're handling them that you are creating a risk, a health risk for yourself just by handling those flowers. And I don't want that for my customers. I want my customers to feel safe in handling the things that come from my farm. But that also means that I have to make choices about what I grow. Um, Iowa is one of the biggest bug biomes in the world. We have this beautiful soil. We have generally regular weather in comparison to a lot of parts of the world. And it's very tempting and very easy to use potentially harmful or very serious chemicals to get that perfect flower. And I don't want that. I want something where I can hand it off to a little kid. And I don't know how, I mean, most kids I know, it takes them a little while to figure out, stop putting everything in their mouth. And I want to be safe with the things that I'm handing off to those beloved friends and family and those who end up receiving my flowers, that I want people to be better off after they get those flowers. So I guess that creating an environment where all can thrive is probably one of the most core pieces of my decision-making process when I'm thinking about the future of my farm. My farm is an unusual one for Iowa because my season is so different. I grow from January to June, and I do work outside of the normal season. Most flower farms are agritourism oriented here in Iowa, and they like to do work in the summer. They grow big, beautiful fields of sunflowers and zinnias and things, and they invite people out to them. And that's not a knock on the work they do. I think there's absolutely a place for that. I think people being more connected to nature is better than less connected to nature. For me, I think it would be hard to invite people over in February to come and like, I don't know, wander the fields or whatever, because right now all I've got is my high tunnel and things are dormant, and I don't think that would be very attractive for people. But I grow tulips in the off season, and that's forcing them, which means I grow them and I create the right environment to grow them outside of their normal season. And I grow those from January until around Mother's Day. And then from there, I shift to peonies, and I finish my season for the year with peonies. So by the end of June, I'm done for the year. And then I can shift my focus to other things. So, yeah, that's kind of what is unique about our farm. We work a lot with other floral businesses. We've got a really cool tulip CSA for people who like unusual tulip varieties. And it's kind of a special place. 'Cause I like my heart, what I love to grow are spring flowers. I love those the most. And it's probably because growing summer flowers is it's hot and sticky, and all I want to do is just like honestly, all I want to do in the summer season is lay in my walk-in cooler and just like stay
It's
stay
the truth right
chilly.
there. Uh-huh.
Think about those cooler months.
Well, right.
But
And if you've chosen to pursue a business that brings you joy and
yeah.
delight, then why would you do it when you're out in the brutal summer sun and
Oh, I
sweating and
know.
getting sticky?
Oh my goodness. I can't tell you how many flower farms that I mean, I was earlier this week, I was at the Association for Specialty Cut Flower Growers conference, and it's a wonderful program that helps educate people on the business of flower farming. And there are so many venues where you can take your business as a flower farm. You can supply grocers, you can do U-picks and floral events, you can host weddings, you can be a florist, a farmer florist. You can, like, I mean, seriously, there are so many avenues where flowers can end up as a flower farmer. And getting to sit and connect with people and learn about their growing season and the soil challenges and the infrastructure they use and the pests they're facing. And we have something pretty special here in Iowa with our soil. It's beautiful for a lot of people. It's very crumbly black, nutrient rich, and it holds its moisture well, but it lets the moisture drain away. And that is so special. What we have here is so special. The rest of most of the rest of the United States doesn't have that. They've got some of them have high pH regions where it affects nutrient uptake by the plants, and so they have to do adjustments to the soil, or they got really sandy soil that doesn't hold moisture well, or they've got really heavy clay soil, and every single farm has its own unique challenges that they face. And we've got something, despite the bugs, I mean,
Right.
despite the bugs, we've got something really special here.
Yeah. So you have found a way to really hone in on building connections through
Mm.
flowers. Let's talk about that a little bit. What does that mean to you, building connections through flowers?
You know, some of the most important moments of my life, weddings and funerals and special memories, often involved flowers. And that probably is where the door opened for me. And using that as a tool to communicate, for people to communicate with me, and then for me to be able to communicate with other people to just say, hey, I'm thinking about you, or hey, I'm celebrating you. This is so exciting. And I think, oh, I'm trying to remember what year. Kurt Vonnegut, famous author from the 1970s, one of his, I love a number of his books. It was always like he was talking straight to you in every single book you read. And some of the stories were pretty wacky. But what I loved about him was how serious he was about human connection.
Mm-hmm.
And for him, and I found this to be inspiring for me, was that he would say to people, okay, if you love spaghetti and that next person next to you loves spaghetti, form a club of spaghetti lovers, like build a connection with people, stay connected. And I think he was talking about that some of the modernization, like access to television, access to air conditioning, those kinds of things, people were spending more time indoors away from each other. And he had spoken very deeply, like from his own heart. And I found that inspiring about maintaining connection with people. And I thought about that, like how, when I feel thought of and regarded, usually flowers are involved.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's when my grandma died, and there were so many people who sent flowers, and I was able to take the petals off of the flowers and dry them. And I took those dried petals and I made, with my sisters, made these pressed flower frames and gave them to everybody in the family. So then everybody had a little piece of that memory. And even the men in the family, they hung them up on the wall right away. And they're like, oh, Grandma, even men love getting flowers. So I think people just like to be thought of. And in the very, very busy world we live in, it is very hard to forget that there is a larger world and that there are people who need encouragement or who want to be recognized for something good or any of those things. And flowers are a really wonderful way to do that.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Flowers themselves form connections with others. And it's not just about being in a spaghetti club, right? It's not just
Right?
we like flowers, and we might both like flowers. We
Oh,
both might both like, right?
I should have had his exact quote. I mean, if I was mentally prepared for this, like I said, I enjoyed a number of his books, but he really prioritized connection and keeping people together. And I think
Mhm.
it would be incredible for him to see the world as it is today and how much it has shifted, because I think a lot of people are craving connection. That's why they use social media. They follow people, they hear about other people's stories, they connect with other people all the way across the world, often because they're dealing with their own hurts or their own celebration. And it's hard when you've got something big going on in your life and maybe you're not getting recognized or connected with someone. And so you take that first step and you listen to the people who are around you. Like that's a big thing for me. I hear somebody is sick and it's like, okay, I'll send a card, or if it's a big sickness, I'll send flowers. And if I'm going to visit them, I'll bring flowers if it's not contagious. Sometimes I'm a bit of a germaphobe, but like I mean, for as much time as I spend playing in the dirt, that's kind of an ironic dissonance in my mind.
Well, okay,
But
but there's something about playing in the dirt that keeps us healthy too, though, isn't
true.
there?
Well, I'm not picking up dirt and eating it, and I generally do try to wash
No,
my
but
hands, but I have heard that there are health benefits of spending time in nature, especially
right.
healthy soil.
Right. Well, and there are mental health benefits too of spending time in nature, right? That's
Yes.
there's
Yes.
self-care there, isn't there?
Yes. I love, sometimes that last hour of the day, if I don't have anything going on and it's not, 10 degrees outside like it is now. Last week, what was it? Last week we had that gorgeous day and it was like 60 degrees or 55 degrees. And I was sitting on the ground watching the sunset with my cats, my farm cats, and they're all hanging around and we're just listening to the birds and the squirrels run up and down the trees and the leaves rustle and we're just watching the sun setting. And it was just it's nothing amazing about that moment. I wasn't doing anything incredible, but I was really enjoying this season for what it was in the moment that it was there. And I love that. I love getting those opportunities to stop and listen to the birds and things like
Right?
that.
I mean, literally stop and smell the flowers. Isn't that what we're
Hmm.
supposed to do?
Yes.
I,
Except when my bees are there, you got to be careful because if you stick your nose in the wrong one, you might get stung. Just,
so there's a point of caution there. There's
yeah.
yeah. So there's something here that I want to pause with because I don't know that we can all and there's I know there's a skeptic listening right now, and I don't know that we can all just stop our corporate grind and go become flower farmers.
Mhm.
I'm going to acknowledge that, and I'm going to freely to the skeptics out there, to the naysayers. I hear you. I hear you. Um, it's not pragmatic. It's not realistic. I honor this, and let's draw the beauty. Let's draw the parallels. Let's pull out what we can. So, what can we learn from Catherine's story? What can we pull from Catherine's story? What nuggets do we have? So
Mhm.
at the very minute, let's start at the end here and work backwards from flowers. What are we drawing from flowers that we can hear that we've heard already that we can use to lift up our day and build connection? So little things that we can take away um, that everybody can apply. What have we got?
Oh, so the big thing that I keep thinking of, and this is a big part of my charitable work, is just there are so many places that need, like, they need volunteers.
Mm,
And, again, like thinking that scope bigger than yourself, finding a skill you have. I apologize in advance. There's a group in Des Moines, a charitable organization, and I'm sorry to whomever this is, but they help like the Black community with repairing their vehicles. That and they do that so that because they want to help them have a car in good operating conditions so they're less likely to get pulled over. And so they'll help them with things like repairing headlights or changing out windshield wipers. And that's somebody with a mechanical skill who can do something in their community that benefits people. There's another organization that takes broken down cars and they use those vehicles to generate, to build skills for people who are post prison, and they help them build a new skill set. And sometimes they repair those vehicles and they resell them. Sometimes they break those down for parts and they sell the parts when it's determined that it's not a repairable vehicle. And again, that's a skill set where it's like somebody's doing something that is greater than themselves that improves the community. There's one I do remember, Meals from the Heartland.
right.
I've spent some time with them before packaging meals that sometimes stay in the United States and sometimes they go all around the world. And they're making sure that communities are nourished with highly nutritious food. So they're building connections and they're improving people's lives through a quality meal.
Mm,
So I think what I would encourage people, the takeaway would be is like, how can you take a skill set or how can you use a skill set or build one that would be something that could benefit somebody else? And it doesn't have to be a big time commitment. It could be an hour or two a month. And you could do something that really could have an impact on somebody right in front of you. You could end up making eye contact with that person who's benefiting. One thing that we do when we have extra flowers, which isn't always often, but when we do, I like to take them to the John Stoddard Cancer Center to
mm.
patients who are going through chemo and radiation. And I don't share that to like pump my own tires, but like it's so important to me to encourage people who are going through such difficult time. And that organization in particular really has shown up for a friend of mine. She's going through cancer, post-cancer treatments, and she was telling me all the ways that they had been involved in improving her quality of life, going through one of the most difficult health trials that most people will ever face. And she is, it's just some of the things they do are so incredible. And I felt compelled to get involved to help that organization because I've witnessed the positive change that they've had for people in my own community.
Right.
So.
doing things. I'll add one to your volunteerism and easy ways to volunteer and serve and do something that doesn't even take a lot of skill. So for those of us who, so there are people out there who like to thrift. If you like to thrift and you like to shop at thrift stores, I know a great one, Many Hands Thrift. They're generosity engines, right? That when you shop there, those funds go and support communities in need. If you have stuff, and many of us have more stuff than we need, donate to places like Many Hands Thrift. And if you want to volunteer, those are organizations where they have such wonderfully flexible schedules that once you learn how to volunteer there, you can just pop in for an hour or for a half hour. And once they train you how to do the thing, you show up and they put you to work. And so even if you have an irregular schedule and you can pop in for just a few minutes, you can pop in and be useful for even a few minutes, a half hour or an hour or whatever. It doesn't have to be a regular schedule. And I know that's been one of the ways that here in community, like there's one in Indianola that where folks can help even here locally. So
Yeah.
there's another example. There are lots of ways to get involved, whatever it is you like to do.
Yeah. I would think another would be the importance of shopping small. That's
Mm,
another one that I really that through this venture has taught me that we're always going to have franchises, that big businesses that come to our area. But often the connections are very impersonal there.
mm,
And going to a small business, you can develop relationships. And I have made so many incredible friends and connections through my flower farming work that some of them I just never expected. The company that I got my high tunnel, which was the big news that you alluded to earlier. I got a grant for a high tunnel for my farm, which was a total game changer. I purchased it from a family operated business. Now this business was based out of Tennessee, I believe, is where they came from. But it was like every time that I have a challenge or a difficulty with my high tunnel, I can call them and I can talk to somebody, and they're happy to troubleshoot with me. And I love that. I love the ideas of shopping small because those dollars stay in your community, and those business owners reinvest in the community. So I personally, I try really, really hard to purchase locally as much as I can, because I personally have experienced that, as much as I've seen other people and the joy they have when they have a customer walk through the door.
oh, I love it. I love it. I am watching the clock here and I know we're getting near time. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that you would want us to make sure that we cover?
Mm, I think the biggest thing that from my notes that I had before is just, part of the challenge that I think a lot of people have, or, that a gap they feel is that comes about because they're so busy. We're so
Mm,
busy all
mhm,
the time. We've got very full schedules. And I think I would encourage people to maybe make a small goal for the year, like once a month or more often if they can manage it, to take time to spend time in nature.
mm,
And I've heard of a number of people who have weekly walks where they will walk with a different person, and maybe they'll pick a trail or something they love and have great conversation. I mean, how many of us are I know I'm always craving great conversation,
mm.
but having really deep conversations that are more than just the weather and the sports and, those kinds of things, but really explore deeper connection with people. That would probably be one of the biggest ones because I know how much it's transformed my life, spending large quantities of time out in nature. And I would just want to share that with other people.
Absolutely. Oh, Catherine, thank you. Now, if our listeners want to find you, of course, they can reach out to us and we will connect them with you. But if they want to reach out to you directly, what's the best way for them to find you?
Well, they can find me on Facebook or Instagram. Both of them have the handle Hive and Petal, or they can track me down on my website, hiveandpetal.com. And if they really want to stay involved, I've got a newsletter that goes out pretty regularly that shares updates about what's happening on the farm. And sometimes they're flower farm related, sometimes they're just about other things going on in my life, I try not to make it a diary. I try to keep it upbeat and encouraging and share lessons about my life and life on the farm because as a city kid, almost all of these lessons are new. But yeah, it's I would say my website and my social media are great places to start.
Fantastic. This would not be the Even Better podcast if I didn't ask you my trademark question, though, Catherine. What's making you
Mm.
even better these days?
Ooh. Mm. Oh, that's tricky. You should have given me it beforehand.
Oh, sorry. Making you even better these days.
It's even better these days. Strategic use of my time.
Ooh,
And yeah,
ooh, that's a good one.
yeah. There was probably best summarized by a conversation I had with another flower farmer this week that using data in a way that allows you to feel comfortable letting certain things go. And that helps you to say yes to the right thing and no to the wrong thing. For me, for the longest time, I've always felt like I needed to say yes. But now that I'm really rethinking about being strategic in how I spend my time and how I, what things do I connect with and make sense? Being strategic makes perfect sense. Applying strategy there. Hopefully that answers your
I
question.
love it. That's fantastic. Thank you. Thank you.
Mm.
Well, thank you, Catherine. I am so grateful for your time and for your insights today. On behalf of all of our listeners, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for letting me prattle on. Obviously, talking is something I enjoy quite a bit. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This was a joy. And to our listeners, thank you so much for joining in. We're so glad you were here. And on behalf of all of us here at Your Clear Next Step, we hope the rest of your day is even better.
Thank you for tuning in today. The Even Better podcast will be back with more content soon. But in the meantime, subscribe to our podcast or check out our website at yourclearnextstep.com for more information. See you next episode.